I'm talking to you and you have your idea of what is true and valid and consistent. And I have my idea of what is true and valid and consistent. And they're exactly the opposite, but they're just as true to each of us. Yeah. And it functions perfectly well in your reality as mine does in my reality.
Welkom bij Beyond Us, de podcast van Fred Matser. Hij spreekt hierin met bijzondere mensen over liefde en bewustzijn, over hoe we met elkaar omgaan en hoe we de maatschappij bewuster en liefdevoller kunnen maken. Fred ontvangt zijn gasten thuis op zijn boerderij, omringd door huismussen en weilanden. Samen gaan ze in gesprek over een van de essays van zijn boek Beyond Us. In deze aflevering spreekt Fred met Peter Goldman. Peter is osteopaat en natuurgeneeskundige sinds 1963. Meer dan 30 jaar gaf hij internationaal les over filosofie en spirituele psychotherapie. Samen met Fred spreekt Peter vandaag over het thema wegen.
Welcome for another edition of Beyond Me, where we deal with the chapters in the book. And this time, our friend, my big friend for, I think, 40 years, Peter Goldman, is our guest. Most welcome, Peter. How are you?
Thank you. Very fine.
You're fine. Especially, we will focus on the chapter Path today. So, what did you pick up from the chapter?
First of all, it is expressed in very fine English. It's you know, the person who has prepared it in that sense, it has a flow to it that invites you. It's like eating spaghetti or something. Okay. That's a lovely food, and so you're drawn into it with interest and with pleasure. And
Good.
Then it's a way of inviting that you just take another look at life and find your own answers that reach from within yourself into the validity of it all, and to try and free yourself from the conditioning of it. I enjoyed that very much.
I came to the idea to write about path because I was wondering to what extent I really was still free in making choices. We are more or less forced into things that people already invented and invite us indeed to make choices, but it's not so easy anymore to go beyond the path. We are even penalized if we do it. So how do you deal with that?
What I felt encouraging in this chapter, for example, is a freedom from the conditioning of dogma and of a repetition of stories that have lost their sparkle. And I enjoy the encouragement to value my own ideas, actually. And in doing this, in talking about so many thousands of years ago and all of that, it's as if the passage of time is not a measurement anymore. It's a state of observation and presence with nature and with the forces that are the living forces that in which we live, in which we exist. Mm-hmm. Personally, I'm very conscious of my lack of education in so many areas, and also the longing for insight that does not take away opportunities for me to think for myself. And I felt that with this chapter, for example.
Peter, thank you. Yeah, I also wanted to ask you if we would associate, which I write about, path with the use of the ratio. I'm aware that in 90% of my daytime, perhaps I go over beaten path, but I want to keep my creativity and go also off the path and wander, because that is food for the soul. So how is that for you?
Yeah, so I've been in Netherlands, and I nearly finished my life when I was going to cross a road. And instinctively, I was there instinctively on the British side of the road.
Yeah.
And, as I was about to step out in the way that I saw nobody was coming on my side, a car came past me from the other direction. And I've thought about that a lot, apart the fact that I was rescued by my guardian angel. And I thought, I'm talking to you and you have your idea of what is true and valid and consistent. And I have my idea of what is true and valid and consistent. And they're exactly the opposite, but they're just as true to each of us. Yeah. And it functions perfectly well in your reality as mine does in my reality.
So while talking and listening to you, I also realize that it's said that we use 5 or 6% of our brain. So if we compare that are the paths that are open, but then there's a 95% field that we have not yet used. And how can we come into those fields?
The impression that comes out of reading the paths is that the awakening of an increasing amount in the brain is not an individual happening, but comes out of the collective happening. So that the individual brain awakens more through the collective state of belonging. And the collective state of belonging is not that we all get up and sit down in the same way, but that the collective state of belonging is the freedom to see through the eyes of the other person. And that in itself becomes the status quo. When we talk to each other, we actually are listening to the way in which our ideas are being received. And the sense of exchange between each other is the awakening of the whole brain. And we can have a genius or a savant, and you can have people with great gifts. But the greatest gift is where all goes forward together in some way. And in this sense, nobody gets left behind.
And Peter, coming back, and perhaps that's the last question, what path would you still like to create yourself?
To develop areas through all the senses in some way, to use your voice creatively, to make things, draw things, to work with music and sound, and then to be able to do it by learning a new language, because it could be a language that you speak, it could be a language of quantum physics, it could be a new concept that you hadn't used your brain with before.
Thank you very, very much. Is there a closing remark that you like to make?
Yes. First of all, my closing remark is please continue with all you're doing.
Thank you
because
very
you're
much.
opening up new areas for all of us and with all of us. And your enthusiasm and your, I would call it your disrespectful attitude towards so many conventions and people who are self-important is very helpful to all of us.
Thank you, my friend. Miles of smiles, sprinkles of twinkles, and lots of love. Bye, bye, bye.
Bye. And thank you very much. Thank you and congratulations and well done.
Dit was Beyond Us, de podcast van Fred Matser in gesprek met Peter Goldman over wegen. Luister het volledige gesprek met Peter terug in je favoriete podcast-app.